Hey Kyle, I sent the living expenses for this month. Please be careful with your spending, okay? At the end of every month, I called Kyle to confirm the transfer. I thought he might find frequent calls annoying, but I still wanted to hear his cheerful voice at least once a month. Thanks for the $15, Mom. I've been living on ramen noodles every day. Wait, what? I've been sending you $1,500 each month. What? We were both confused. According to my bank statement, I had indeed transferred $1,500 to Kyle's account. Why did he think it was only a fraction of that? $15 doesn't go far. But Kyle, isn't your company struggling right now? What are you talking about? My company is doing better than ever. I was even thinking about increasing your allowance. Kyle let out a surprised, "Huh." Who told Kyle my company was in trouble? I pressed him for answers, feeling my temper rise. Kyle, I'll handle this. Don't worry. I hung up, determined to get to the bottom of this. I was going to Kyle's place and then we'd go to the police. I had a suspect in mind, and I wouldn't let him get away with it. I'm Monica, a 49-year-old single mother. I divorced my husband while pregnant and have raised Kyle on my own ever since. Thanks to our family business, I managed to work and study hard, ensuring a stable life for us. Kyle never suffered because he had just one parent. Kyle has always been serious, though a bit absent-minded. His grades were always top-notch. When my father fell ill during Kyle's elementary school years, it inspired him to become a doctor. He worked hard and got into a prestigious medical school at the top of his class. I planned to cover his university expenses, but Kyle earned a tuition waiver, which was a huge relief. I'm so proud of his hard work and achievements. The university was a 2-hour train ride from home, so I used the money saved from tuition for him to live near the university. We found a student dormitory where he could stay. It was a bit sad not being able to see his room due to the dorm's rules, but I understood it was part of his journey to independence. For the first few days, Kyle contacted me regularly. After a week, his messages became less frequent, and after a month, I hardly heard from him. I assumed he was busy adjusting to university life and didn't have much time to call. I decided to wait and see, believing no news is good news. A week before the summer break, Kyle finally called. He was excited about his classes, his part-time job, and mentioned he planned to come home for the holidays. Hearing his lively voice was a relief. Kyle asked if he could bring a friend from the dorm who had nowhere to go for the holidays. Considering Kyle's usual shyness, inviting a friend meant they had really hit it off. I agreed without hesitation. Hello. When I saw the friend Kyle brought home for the holiday, I was speechless. I had assumed he would look as reserved as Kyle. However, standing at the front door was a boy with blonde hair and several piercings in both ears. Welcome. Ah, are you Kyle's mom? You're so pretty you must be popular. Well, maybe. Ignoring my discomfort, the friend David made himself at home and sat down on the living room sofa. I wanted to say something about his presumptuous attitude, but I held back because he was a friend of Kyle's after all. During his 3-day stay, David was bossing Kyle around with this and that. It made me anxious, but Kyle didn't seem to mind too much. Hey Kyle, let's hit up the arcade. There's no arcade around here. That's lame. If he was bored, he could just go home. Over these 3 days, I grew to dislike David quite a bit because he was always clinging to Kyle. I couldn't get any time with my son. He was disrupting our precious family time, and frankly, I wished he would just go home. In the end, David didn't just stay for 3 days. He stayed until Kyle left, and I didn't get any time with Kyle at all. After they returned to the dormitory, Kyle's calls became sporadic. Still, I received a thank you for the money and a brief update on his life once a month, so I believed he would be all right since he was almost an adult. But come fall, I got a call from Kyle mid-month, which was unusual. "Sorry, I've been a bit busy and can't work my part-time job. I can't make rent. Could you send me some money?" "Is it because of exams? But I'm not thrilled about you overspending. I'll send it this time, but be careful from now on." When I said that, Kyle replied with a dispirited, "I'm really sorry." It was unlike Kyle to run into money trouble, so I had a feeling David might be involved. "Hey, is there something you're struggling with right now?" "I'm fine. Thanks for everything. Don't overdo it, all right." Got it. Kyle's lack of energy in his voice concerned me, but I thought he must be feeling down because it was the first time he had money problems. Then, at the end of the next month, I called Kyle. "Hello, Kyle. I've put this month's living expenses into your account. Don't waste it, okay?" I always called him at the end of the month to confirm the transfer. I figured calling a young man too often might be annoying, but I still wanted to hear his cheerful voice at least once a month. "Thanks for the $15 each month. I'm eating ramen noodle every day." "What?" "I've been transferring $1,500 every month." "Huh." We both were puzzled by what the other had said. According to my bank book, I had been transferring the usual $1,500 into Kyle's account, so why did he think he was only receiving 1/10 of that? $15 isn't enough for anything. "But Mom, isn't your company having a tough time?" "What are you talking about? This year's been our best yet. I was actually thinking of increasing the amount I sent you." Kyle responded with a surprised, "Huh," to my words. "Where on earth did you hear that my company was in trouble?" I managed to find out who said it, and it made my blood boil. "Kyle, I swear your mom is going to sort this out." I hung up the phone, intent on heading to Kyle's place. Once I pick Kyle up, I plan on going to the police station. The culprit is definitely that guy. I won't forgive him. I took a cab from the nearest station and stopped near the student dorms. Then I called Kyle and told him to sneak out. "Make sure no one sees you, okay?" "Why?" "Just do it." Kyle seemed unconvinced, but he kept his promise and snuck out of the dorm. As he turned the corner and approached the car, I nearly screamed, "Mom, it's been a while." "Kyle, what happened to you? To your body?" He was healthy when I saw him in the summer, but now in front of me was my son, looking nothing but skin and bones. What on earth had happened? I asked Kyle cautiously, "Kyle, you've lost so much weight. What happened?" At first, Kyle said it was nothing, but gradually he began to explain his current situation. "Mom, after I returned from visiting home, you sent me a new bank book for a new account, remember? Since then, the allowance you've been sending has been cut to $15, right? I was really struggling, but I heard from David when I was home that you were talking about folding the company, so I thought life must be tough." I was stunned to hear this. I have no memory of discussing such things with Kyle while he was home. The company has been achieving its best performance this year. I have no intention of folding it. There was something else in Kyle's story that bothered me. "Hey, what new account are you talking about?" "Huh." That's right. I've never created a new account since Kyle was born. Moreover, I've been depositing $1,500 into the same account every month. A horrible feeling came over me. "Kyle, let's go to the police." "The police? Why?" "Because someone might be stealing the money I've been sending to you." When I said this, Kyle's eyes widened in disbelief, but then, as if he realized something, he began to think. Could it be? Kyle's suspicions were probably correct. Thinking of how Kyle has been hurt made my heart ache, but the person responsible for this needs to be held accountable. "Driver, please take us to the nearest police station." Upon my request, the cab started moving. The taxi driver, having overheard our conversation, kindly took us to the biggest police station in town. When we arrived at the police station, I supported Kyle as we entered. Kyle used to be so conscientious about his diet and was in such good shape due to sports, but now he seems even lighter than me. As we walked, tears blurred my vision. The young man at the police station listened to both our stories and offered words of comfort. "First, you've done well to endure through tough times," he said, and Kyle started crying as if a dam had burst. "It turns out we've had similar complaints from this student dorm area lately." "Really?" "According to the police officer, in the last month there have been about 3 families who have come with complaints similar to ours, and all of them unanimously pointed to a person named David as the culprit." "Is the person you're talking about by any chance David?" I asked, and the police officer sighed and nodded. Kyle was looking down beside me. He probably suspected it, but really hoped it wasn't true. I put my hand on Kyle's back and looked at the police officer. "Is there an ongoing investigation?" After a moment of thought, the police officer took Kyle and me to a separate room. He asked us to file a complaint. Of course, I agreed and immediately filled out the complaint form. After submitting it, an officer sat down with us and explained the current status of the investigation. David was like the contact person, getting close to the victims to obtain their account and PIN numbers to withdraw the funds, and it seems that they are currently investigating whether a certain man is the one receiving the stolen money. I stood up in shock when I saw the photo they presented. "I know this man." "Excuse me?" Even the police seemed surprised, their eyes wide as they looked over at us. I took a deep breath to calm my pounding heart. Then I began to talk about the man in the picture. "That's John Miller, right? He's my ex-husband and Kyle's father." "Wait, my dad?" "Yes, the man in the photo was John, my former husband. The reason for our divorce was a mix of financial issues and affairs. After the divorce, I lost touch with him and never received child support. I thought it better that Kyle not meet him and be influenced negatively, so I never followed up on John's whereabouts, but I never imagined he'd be involved in a police matter. I felt a chill run through me. Basically, Kyle had been scammed by both an important friend and his biological father." Kyle was so shocked that he just stood there with his mouth open. "Actually, we found out that John and David are father and son as well." "What?" David had told me before that he was the same age as Kyle. Kyle's dorm does thorough ID checks, so that was probably true. But if that's the case, it means that John had another woman pregnant at the same time as me. I no longer have any feelings for John, and though it's after the fact, it was still a shock. "Are you saying David and I are brothers?" Kyle seemed unable to comprehend this astonishing revelation. I was at a loss for words in the face of this unexpected fact. "I'm sorry, but we need a bit of your cooperation." "Of course. I won't hesitate to help catch those 2. Kyle gave a small nod in agreement with my words. Following the police's instructions, we decided to take the necessary actions. I sneakily returned Kyle to the dorm, and I stayed at a nearby hotel. The next day, I waited for the right moment when David was around and called. "Hey, is Kyle doing all right?" Claiming that Kyle was busy washing dishes, I deliberately put the call on speakerphone. From this action, I gathered that David must be nearby. "I've come into a bit of unexpected money, so I'll transfer it to your account. Make sure you use it wisely." "Got it, thanks," Kyle said and hung up the phone. I stopped the voice recorder I had on hand, then I transferred $10,000 to an account under Kyle's name. The next morning, Kyle checked his online banking and sent the proof to the police. After stopping by a certain place, I went to the dorm with the police. I explained the situation to the dorm manager, who immediately took us to David's room. When I pressed the bell, annoying footsteps approached from inside. "Who is it?" Wait, what? David opened the door briskly and froze. He didn't understand why Kyle's mother and the police were standing together in a place where outsiders were not allowed. David seemed genuinely clueless. I put on a smile for the confused David. "Long time no see, David. I'm Kyle's mom." "What do you want with me, Kyle's mom? And you brought the cops." David looked at Kyle beside me and guessed what we were there for. "We have a warrant and are going to conduct a search now." "I'm really sorry, I have to go out. Can we do this another time?" Without skipping a beat in response to the police officer's words, David tried to forcefully shut the door, but the police weren't about to let that happen. Two men managed to open David's apartment door and started their search. Soon after the search began, there were calls from all around. "Found something." Hearing this, David seemed to slump his shoulders in resignation. Leaving David behind, Kyle and I entered the room. On the table, there were several passbooks and cards, all laid out. Each one was for an account under a different name. Looking at them, my head started to hurt. The cops, with practiced hands, sorted them by name and began snapping photos. "How did this get out? Kyle, did you rat me out? I thought you were my best friend. You must have been laughing at me on the inside while I was going through tough times." "It's not what it looks like. There's an explanation for all this." David tried to come up with all sorts of excuses to escape blame, but Kyle didn't react at all. Agitated by Kyle's attitude, David looked as if he was about to grab him at any moment. That's when I opened my mouth. "Swindling money from your own half-brother. That's just the lowest of the low." "Half-brother? Who's related to whom?" "You and Kyle are half-brothers," I said. Frozen by my words, David stood still. Given that he had limited his targets to students, it seemed certain that he had shared the preliminary investigation information with John. Because of my family's unique business, when John did some digging on Kyle, he would have quickly realized that he's my son. "No way." "It's true. John Miller is my ex-husband and Kyle's biological father. It seems he was having an affair at the same time, though, and that's when you were born." As I said this, David sat down in shock. From the police investigation, I knew that David had a sickly sister. After divorcing me, John immediately married his then-mistress. However, it seems the mistress did not want a boy, so David was neglected and raised haphazardly. As soon as the sister was born, John and the mistress divorced. The sister, being expensive to treat, was taken in by her maternal side, and it seemed David was taken in by John. They met his siblings from time to time, and during those meetings, David had been giving money to his mother for medical expenses. Learning this, I felt the significant presence that the concept of siblings held for David, and it seemed my hunch was correct. "I've been exploiting my own siblings." With those final words, David was taken away by the police. Kyle and I just went to the police station and were shown only the parts of the passbooks that concerned us. It turns out David had been getting people drunk or accompanying them shopping, and when stopping at the ATM, he would take note of the pins. Later, he would visit their rooms and take the passbooks, cards, and even IDs. The reason he had come back home with Kyle during the holiday was to check if my family was wealthy. He would then create new accounts, hand them over to the victims, and whenever money was deposited into their original accounts, he would withdraw everything only to deposit a little back into the new ones. No wonder I couldn't figure out what I had spent my money on when I updated my passbook. Now it all made sense, and I sighed. It didn't take long for David to name John as an accomplice, and by the next evening, John too had been apprehended. I went to the police and shared everything about John's background with them. A little while later, I went to visit John. Kyle wanted to come, but I asked to go alone this time and had let him wait outside. John, whom I hadn't seen in 20 years, had aged, but his attitude of looking down on others was still there. "Man, I've really done it this time. Got too carried away, I guess." Without a hint of remorse, that's what John said, and I couldn't hold back my anger. But yelling now would just wash away all the effort I've put in so far. I forced a smile. "Pathetic, aren't you? Lost it all on the horses, but hey, I'll just call my folks after ages and get out of here soon." John replied casually, as if making small talk. I slapped a piece of paper in front of him. His smug look changed instantly. "Hey, what the heck is this about?" "Oh, that. I told your parents everything about you." His parents, decent folks, kept in touch with me even after our divorce. "They told me to bring this when I said I was going to see you today." "What are you talking about? This is a disavowal letter." John lunged at me from behind the glass. I calmly replied, "You wouldn't understand their hardships, would you? They've been putting off seeing their own grandson, Kyle, because of your mess. You should have let me see him. Don't you dare say that after all you're running away." Raising my voice, a cop in the room told me to calm down. I took a deep breath to settle down. "Anyway, this means I can finally show your mother her grandson. Oh, and about David." "What about David? He's got nothing to do with you." "He doesn't want to see you ever again. Says he doesn't want anything to do with a father who'd exploit his own kids. Your mom said she'd take him in." "You're kidding. Without him, how am I supposed to live?" John sounded so pitiful that I just had to laugh. "Well, maybe you should start working and pay off your alimony." "Monica, come on. We go way back, right? Help me out." "How funny. Whatever we had ended 20 years ago." I answered with the biggest smile of the day, and John looked utterly hopeless. Feeling a wave of relief, I walked out of the visiting room without looking back. John's other crimes came to light, and he got a prison sentence. He won't be out for at least 5 years, giving us all some peace of mind. David, being a minor, ended up on probation. He's apparently being re-educated under the strict guidance of his foster parents now. Their home is even deeper in the boondocks than ours, with absolutely no form of entertainment, so it seems David's having a tough time. By the way, his sister is planning to undergo surgery abroad, and the money David was desperately gathering was for that purpose. However, it turned out that John had been embezzling those funds. David seems like he's still at an age where he wants to enjoy himself, but each time he gets a talking to from his foster parents. Kyle was initially confused, but he's buckled down and is studying hard to become a doctor, which was his original goal. He's been moving up in school and is about to face the national board exams soon. As for me, my company has grown even more, and I've been able to increase the financial support I give to Kyle. On top of that, someone who has been with the company through thick and thin and who Kyle has been fond of since he was a kid has unexpectedly proposed to me, and I'm currently holding off on my answer. It was Kyle who suggested that this person should propose, saying, "You might as well marry rather than just date." I was a bit impressed. He knows me so well. Nevertheless, with Kyle's clinical rotations and exams coming up next year, the expenses will surely increase. I'm thinking that I should first support Kyle in becoming a fine doctor before I start considering